Hello, and welcome to the NOTstalgia podcast.
A podcast where we discuss the retelling or continuation of pop culture favorites as seen through a queer and feminist lens.
My name is Eric Lefebvre.
And my name is Jessica Tercero.
And this week it's just us, so deal with it. No guest, just your faves. And we're watching Cheaper by the Dozen and its remake, Cheaper by the Dozen. So we know that there is like an older Cheaper by the Dozen, but we're going classic 03 Steve Martin, Bonnie Hunt, and the latest 2022 remake with the impeccable Gabrielle Union and Zach Braff. Emphasis on the smallness of Zach Braff's name.
Yes. I don't think I've ever watched this movie, the 2003 one, because it was like that perfect time where it's like Lizzie McGuire is like happening, like Hilary Duff's at like her peak. There's like a bunch going on, and it's like, okay, like I know this movie, but I know that I have not seen it, you know?
Yeah.
And so I had no context, and then just out of the blue one day, I got like, you know, you're scrolling through like Google News or whatever, and it's like Cheaper by the Dozen remake, and I was like, oh, okay. And then for some fucking reason, literally up until last week, from the moment it was announced until like last week, there was just so many like Cheaper by the Dozen, blah 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 blah, cheaper, like all these fucking headlines, and it was like, okay, who are these Cheaper by the Dozen stans? Where are they? Do they exist? Because I don't believe you. Like, this hype machine does not really have me hyped for this at all.
Yeah, it is interesting to think if there is like a fandom for the Cheaper universe, Cheaper by universe.
The original is like from the 50s. I was like, oh my God, how many fucking times are we going to remake this movie?
Yeah. I mean, like, they're movies.
Oh, and it's based off of a book. So the original movie is based off of a book, and then that movie was turned into a remake, which was then turned into a remake, which will inevitably become a TV show.
Probably, yeah. It's a movie. They're movies. They're definitely movies that exist. My history with them, very nothing as well. I do think that the 2003 movie, though, is one of those movies that I'm like, oh, I've seen this, but in reality, I've really just seen the trailer a million times. Or like, I do that a lot where I'm like, I've seen that 100%. And then I watch the trailer, I'm like, oh no, I saw the trailer. I have no idea what this movie's about. I remember these little quips and like the little catchy lines that repeated so many times because I used to watch so much TV, and like it's imprinted in my brain. So I think that this one is one of them. Like, what were the lines that he says? He said a line when him and Beans are swinging from the chandelier, and that was in the trailer. And then he also said something else later. And then the young girl, what is her name?
Sarah.
Sarah, Allison
the young
Stoner.
shithead?
Yes. She says something that's also in it. Also, she's fucking cool. Do you know who she is?
No.
She was the little girl in all those Missy Elliott videos.
Really?
Yeah, she's the dancer.
Oh, that's
yeah.
tight.
She was also in Camp Rock. She's been in a bunch of stuff, but that was her. Isn't that crazy?
Oh, that's cool. Okay.
Yeah, she's awesome. So that like little girl who could really fucking dance. This was a movie she was in. And you're like, oh, okay, sick. But yeah, I don't have any affiliation with it apart from that. And watching it, I was like, oh, I don't actually think I saw this, and now I have. Congrats to me. Congrats to us. Really,
we did it. Oh my God.
we did it. Should we just do it?
Let's
Should we just go into it? Okay. Tom and Kate Baker met in college where they fell in love with each other at the number 12, so naturally they got married and had a dozen children. Having tons of kids was always in the plan for them and was in fact so important that they both gave up their big career ambitions and settled down in the suburbs. Flash forward 20 years, everything is chaotic, everyone hates each other, and they're all too overwhelmed to nurture their familial relationships or even to remember everyone's name. Great job, Mom and Dad.
Tom gets an offer to coach his college football team, his literal dream job, and moves the family out to the city despite the kids' adamant protest against the decision. At the same time, Kate gets an offer to publish her book that she's been working on about her family, surprise, which will unfortunately take her away from said family for a few weeks. Tom assures Kate he can manage both having a job and being a dad on his own while she's gone. However, in just a few days, Tom spectacularly fails at both, cutting his wife's book tour short and costing him his job. Oh, and one of the kids runs away too. Anyway, Tom finds the missing child, they move back to the suburbs, and everything is as it always was for the Baker family.
The Baker's dozen. Ooh.
I mean, there was a moment they could have done that, but they didn't.
They did it in the next one.
They did it in the next one.
At the very, very end. Yeah. Because first and foremost, I do want to say that this is a Piper Perabo stan account. I'm obsessed with her. Do you know her? She's the oldest sister.
She? Oh, okay.
And only because the only other thing I know her from, and which I will die loving her for, is Coyote Ugly.
Yes.
She's the lead of Coyote Ugly, and she's so good. And that movie is so bad and silly and camp and trash and messy, and she's wonderful. And I used to be obsessed with Coyote Ugly as a kid, so she will forever be imprinted in my mind. She's amazing. Cheaper by the dozen. Let's talk about it.
It's a movie.
So you'd said before, or in the intro, or maybe before we started, something about like this family hates each other. And
yes.
I was immediately like, I disagree. And we were going to get into it.
Okay,
let's just jump right off into that. So you
100%.
think this family hates each other?
Yeah, I think nobody likes each other. I think there's like some camaraderie from the kids maybe, but like they're all assholes to each other. I really fucking hate the sure, I want to kill her, but I'd also kill for her. Like hate that.
Agreed.
I hate that.
Terrible line. Also, no offense, Hilary Duff, but like she did not pull it together in this film.
She didn't. Also didn't. The kids didn't have a lot to work with. The kids were like one-liners. So
they really didn't. So for me, my big disagreement is between Kate and Tom, which is Steve Martin and Bonnie Hunt. I made like several notes of this being like, they really like each other. Like no matter what, there's a consistent level of love, like, and respect that they constantly have throughout. Like, it could be the most stressful day, and there's still a level of like, you've done this before, you've got this, I'm also here, we can handle it. The one thing that he does wrong is not like communicate with her when she's like gone, and then like that creates like the rift. But ultimately he's like, there's that level of, you're following your dreams, you've literally never had time off. Like, we did this thing for me, let me do this thing for you, even though I'm failing at it and running myself thin. I don't want to concern you with it. Go live your dream, be mad at me later, but follow that for you. I just like how supportive they were of one another, no matter what. And I mean, granted, with the kids, it's tricky, but even then, like, a lot of these kids are fucking brat. Like, I don't want to say that. These kids are being kids. They're being aggressive, misunderstanding, intentionally obtuse, silly, grumpy, frustrating. Like, they're being kids, as kids do, because kids are constantly growing and learning. And they respond, I think, like, the best way parents should to these kids sometimes. Like, even when the oldest son, who's like, you know I don't like you, right? And he's like, I know that. Instead of being like, yeah, well, fuck you too, asshole. Like, you think I like being your dad? Like how some dads would. Like, they would just be big babies about it back. Like, he's just like, yeah, okay, great. And then, cool. Like, you can hate me and that's fine, but like, I need you to do this. Thanks. And then they have like a nice moment later. And even with some of the kids, like, somebody will throw, somebody's like, grab it. Hey, nice throw, but let's not do that here. Boom. Like, supportive, but a nice reassuring bump of, hey, a little rough, please tone it back, but way to go. You're doing a good job. Kill it.
Sure. But at the same time, Steve Martin specifically can't remember all of his children's names.
And it's like, true.
And I feel like a big reason why the kids like are really awful to Frog Child, to the child they referred to as FedEx,
which is a real rough fucking nickname.
Which
Jesus.
was fucked up. Like, they call him FedEx because they're like, you don't belong, right?
You got dropped off by the FedEx person.
Yeah.
You're like, cool.
But like, mom and dad don't really like they don't really curb that kind of behavior, like, and they themselves kind of feed into that because they're like, oh wait, what's your name? I'm sorry, I forgot, right? And I feel like
Yeah.
a lot of that stuff that you're talking about, yes, is there, but I feel like a lot of it is performative. And I say that because again, like the kids are acting out because they don't have the attention. They like their parents aren't able to nurture them because there is so many of them. So like of course like Nora, you know, the eldest daughter and the eldest son and everything are going to like have a little bit more of a connection with the parents because at a certain time, they were the only kids. They were the only people in their lives. So they got to have this connection that the other children will never know, right? Because the mom has been pregnant or recovering from pregnancy literally for almost their entire marriage, right?
Every
Like
single year, it's another pregnancy.
she
Yeah.
like maybe she just didn't even like actually quit her job. Maybe she's just perpetually been on maternity leave since, you know, she had the first
Which,
one.
if that be the case, scam it, girl. Go off.
Do
Like,
I mean
get
absolutely.
get your money. That's great.
But again, so they're having all of these children, but not having them because they want to. To me, it felt like they're not having them because they want to be parents. They're having them because they want this number, or because they both want a lot of kids, right? So, which
Well,
like, but again, they don't really nurture them, right? And so then like dad is like gets this opportunity. He tries to be like, hey everybody, let's talk about this. The kids are like, no, fuck you. And he's like, well, no, actually we're gonna go. And then mom gets like her book deal and he's like, yes honey, do this, great. But when it comes to, oh wait, but things are going to change and you're gonna be gone, hold on, wait a second, okay, you know what, no, just go, it's gonna be the one day. Oh, 2 weeks, okay, well, hold on, I'm gonna do that. But really inside he's like, it all kind of comes to a head where he's like, you picked a really fucking good time to have a career, right? And he's just pissed off at her and blames her for kind of what's happening. Like the house falls apart without mom. I hate this. I hate that somebody can't be a dad.
trope.
A dad simply cannot be a dad. I feel like this movie really reinforces the gender binary and gender roles in like this way that is really, really shitty, where the women are always calling themselves fat and saying that they need to lose weight, where the women are always like the ones that are cooking, or, you know, like Nora has to come and help with the kids because she's now like this caregiver and it's expected of her, but Charlie's there and Charlie doesn't really have to do shit, right? Like Nora has to leave and then takes her boyfriend is playing video games, which like, oh my God. He's playing video games while she's sitting there cooking for him. And then she leaves him because he doesn't want children, you know? So like, okay, we're really reinforcing this. But I think a lot of it too, I think there's some religious thing happening here because because originally like they're like, okay, cool, we love each other in college, let's fuck. And like in religion, right? And in certain religions, you are only supposed to fuck if you are intending to have a child, right? And they are clearly still very horny for each other. So, like, yes, this is why they had this many. And then, like, oh, we had enough. So we can, you know, I'll get the vasectomy, which great. Glad that he got the vasectomy rather than her having to have her tubes tied, because it's way harder for women if they even allow you to do that, right?
And that was off the bat where you started was, why are they having this many kids? Could not agree with you more. Why are they having this many fucking kids? A, we don't need this many people. B, as parents, you understand that after like maybe the 5th or 6th child, you're not going to be present for, like, it's just, no matter how good of a parent you are, no matter how hard you try, you're just not going to have the bandwidth for them.
Mm-mm.
It's just not going to happen. So, like, there is a level of like, there should be a level of recognition of that moving into that sort of a parenting role, especially after the first couple kids. Like, why 12? Like, I know that a couple of them were accidents, but like, babe, buy a fucking condom. Like, it's really not hard to wear a condom.
They tried to say that the dad had like 7 or 8 brothers and sisters, right? And he loved that experience growing up, and he wanted his kids to have that. So they knew they wanted a big family. That's like the premise of this, right?
And
and like some of the kids were oopsies, which okay, fine. But then the other thing I start thinking about is, was this great for you because you were the oldest or the youngest or something? Like, what was your dynamic in that family? Because clearly you don't talk to them anymore, and clearly they're incapable of being here for you when you are
Yeah.
supposedly so close and had such a great time with your brothers and sisters growing up. That, like, also worth
Literally,
noting.
it's
Worth noting that this, like, when they moved to the city for him to be Mr. Football Coach, it's only a couple of days that this whole movie takes place. Like, he ruins this job in a couple of days. Like, and his
yeah.
wife is only able to go out for a couple of days. It's not like weeks or a month. He cannot handle being a father. And his work will not allow him, like, any sort of leverage. Again, like, reinforcing, like, we're the man. You don't take care of kids. You don't have that job, right? Reinforcing all of these, like, really harmful notions about, like,
Yeah.
about fathers, right? It's like a couple of days and he gets fired because of that kind of pressure that his job puts on him,
Yeah.
which is just...
I mean, I will say though, I do like that in the end, he chooses not to keep it. He's like, yeah, you know what? You're right. I can't do both. So I'm giving you this job back and I'm going
Yeah.
to be with the family. And
Great.
the only person who does get to follow that dream is the mom. She publishes her book. It is a national bestseller. Like, so in the end, he recognizes this messiness and is like, hey, maybe I have been spreading everyone too thin. I do need to be more present. I do need to let her take some time because she's like, I've been able to do all of my shit forever. We're a team, but generally because of this binary, I've been able to do whatever I want to. She's kind of like, if she's not here, it falls apart. We see this. Let me step back. Let me quit this job. She wrote a wonderful book. That book is going to give us more than enough money. Let me be home now. While she gets to be the breadwinner, she gets to be the one following her dreams, where I've been able to do that my whole life, essentially, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I like that that's where it's resolved.
I also like that he doesn't look happy at the end. Like, he just kind of looks like the last shot of his face is not like, oh yeah, this is great and everything's happy. Like, he just looks just kind of like, well, this is it.
Well, yeah, and it's also like, yeah, you had 12
like
kids. You had 12 fucking like, it's hard. Why did you think this was going to be fun or easy? Like, I don't.
Right.
It's there's heavy religious undertones to it as well, just for that idea of procreation, bringing more followers into the world, blah blah blah. So it is a little bit messy in that regard, and it does sort of hold family above all else, which, yeah, when you're parents and you have young kids, like, duh, be there, be present. But I want to bat back on you said he was mad that she had to go. I don't think he was like mad. He was like, this is just really inconvenient, but yes, you're right. And she's like, no, actually I can say, and he's like, no, you have to go. And she's like, okay.
He does tell her to go, but
even when she like calls, he's not like, it's falling apart without you. There's a literal axe through the door, and he's like, no, everything's fine. Do not worry. Focus on you. The book thing has to happen for you.
Sure.
It's gonna be fine, even though it's like so far from fine. And that's like the whatever.
Well, and part of me wonders, though, I don't feel like that was as much for her as it was for him being afraid of failing and like saying that he failed.
But the thing is I disagree, because I do think that he has failed consistently as a coach, which is why this like big thing is so huge. Like, how old is this man? How long has he spent trying to get literally this job?
He's succeeded as the coach. Like, he gets this job because his team is like, oh, and whatever. Like, they've won every single game for this many seasons or whatever. And his friend offers him this job. He's like, hey, I know this is your dream job. Come here. Like, he gets that job because he doesn't even apply for it. His friend is like, this is your dream job. You are doing a really good job at coaching. Come here. And the reason he never went for coaching above where he was because he's like, okay, I'm dad. I have this house. I have 12 children. Okay, great. But this is the one opportunity that he can't say no to.
That's true. Yeah. I guess we haven't really seen him fail. So this is like, yeah, maybe it's because to me, I didn't read it as like a fear of failure because of the way that they interact early on. Like, they're very clearly very much in love. Like, the moment when he like turns around, he's like, were you checking me out? And she's like, of course. And he's like, It's like this cute little moment where like they're still very horny for each other. They still like each other. And the conversation of like, we're united front, like, hey, I'm here. Like, you say something, I'm going to have your back. Like, we're a team. You're my best friend. I like you. which is why I'm here, but I also love you. Like, you are it for me. And it seemed like that was super resonant throughout. So maybe it is a little bit of him failing, but it really did genuinely feel like I can't fail for her. Like, not I can't fail because of me. She has to have this, and I know she has to have this, and I need to make this happen for her, which means that I can't let this crumble, but it's crumbling, and I am failing at this, but fuck, okay, well, I can't tell her now, like, because that just can't happen. I can't take that away from her, because if I tell her something's wrong, she's dropping everything, she's coming home, so I can't let that happen. So maybe it is like, maybe he doesn't want her to see him as a failure, like, oh, I'm gone for 2 days and you can't even handle it. What about me doing this for 22 years or whatever? Like, fuck, like, really? You can't be here for me in this way? But it did really feel more like an earnest, I want to see her succeed at this thing that she so clearly wants and is good at. And I believe in her so strongly that, like, she's going to get it. She just needs the time. And I need to give her the time it takes to get the thing that she deserves. That's how I read it. Which is why, like, in these small moments, I'm like, despite it all, it did seem like they genuinely liked each other. Now, the kids are a completely different story, especially when we get into, like, Nora, the oldest sister, and her boyfriend, and that whole conversation. I feel like I'm out of breath. I'm so fucking...
I mean, you've been going.
I'm so breathy in this. I'm like...
Well, I will say that part of me just... I don't know. I've never been a big Steve Martin fan. So I might be bringing some of that here. And especially after working at Disneyland during the 50th anniversary at the Opera House, where I had to watch Steve Martin perform the same bit every 20 minutes without fail. I mean...
I'm sure that's ingrained in your brain.
It is very ingrained in my brain. But I don't know. Like, I find the kind of characters that he plays just kind of like... tired and like just like I like again just like very much I'm the man of the house, or like this is my role, and it's always like funny, it's always for laughs, right? I mean, it's Steve fucking Martin, who's an incredible banjo player, in case you don't know. But like I've never really loved any of the characters that he's played, like that I've seen, at least.
I really do like Steve Martin, and part of it is because he's kind of a soft boy to me. Like, he's obviously like dad type, like big man, whatever, but amongst the men, amongst the men, big air quotes, he seems like kind of like a soft pushover, like kind of just like, I'm like a little squirrely. He feels just like a little soft dad. You know what I mean? Like, he's not as like, I'm big, strong, and you're going to do what I say. It's just like he'll make a joke out of authority. He'll make it whatever, you know what I mean? That's sort of his humor. That's at least how I see it. And I don't have that baggage with him. So I like him. I don't love him. I'm not like a Steve Martin stan. I'm not like running the boards or anything.
I do know Steve Martin stans, and they will be mad at me for saying any of that. But that's okay. But
you have your opinion. You know, you're allowed to have that.
We all have opinions. Yeah. And that's okay.
Yeah. I mean, for the most part, I do think he's very funny. I love his sense of humor. I like that it's based in a lot of physical comedy and slapstick and really bad impressions. Like, that's the whole deal.
You know what? I will say I think I like a lot of his I prefer earlier Steve Martin as opposed to like Father of the Bride and Cheaper by the Dozen. So, because when I think of Steve Martin, I think of this era, and really he's always been like 84 years old, but but thinking of like something like Roxanne, or something like from like, you know,
The Jerk, or
something like that. Like, it's like, okay, yes, this is it. But when he steps into these kind of roles, I don't love that.
See, and again, I feel that like when he is the sort of like schlubby, slip on a banana peel lover boy who's like 32, amazing. To me, because he is just this like, he's like the sidekick who thinks he knows what's going on, but then suddenly he's like literally out of the joke, and he's like, wait, why did everybody run away? He's always that like, he's kind of a dimwit, and it's like the perfect silly little dim-witted character that he does in almost everything. And I mean, like, he's so funny.
He is okay. He is very funny. I just don't. I don't like these roles for some reason, and maybe it's also because like some of the men that, you know, again, I was around growing up were like, some of what he said or did like was just kind of perpetuating or like give it as an excuse for like these men to act in this certain way.
Yeah.
So there's like at least 10 lines from this movie where I'm like, oh, this person has said this, like, or I have seen this, like, you know, and this person would be like, yeah, it's like this, you know, so like,
He's
so
not
I think
doing
I think I
anything
just
to actively
oh my
help.
gosh, I think I just have daddy issues, y'all.
I mean, you and me both. Don't we fucking all? My God. No, but yeah, he, in that same way that we talk about Bill Murray, I feel like he's not, obviously not Bill Murray. He's not necessarily even Bill Murray-esque, but there is a level to the like,
He's
doesn't do
definitely
anything.
more endearing than Bill Murray at the
Yeah.
very least, and he does respect women much more than Bill Murray.
Yeah,
Like
it seems in
these
general and in
ways,
his character work, it seems like that there is a level to him that is genuine in that, like. But again, that's character, it's appearances, it's this version of, it's this celebrity idea that we've seen perpetuated over 4 or 5 decades with him. So we don't know him, we don't know who he is in person, but genuinely there is a more lovable quality than somebody like Bill Murray, where his whole thing is
100%.
being an asshole, being aloof, and being a misogynist, whereas his is like none of those things.
And Steve Martin always, like, his characters always have this moment where they like kind of break down and like, you know what, this sucks. I'm not this person,
Yeah.
right? Where I feel like Bill Murray never has that.
Yeah,
So,
that might be
like,
exactly it, actually.
yeah, okay. Maybe I'm
he's-
working through my Steve Martin issues, my this era of Steve Martin issues on pod, but we all grow and it's great. But yeah, I still to me, I think a lot of his lines just really, and a lot of his mannerisms and like really just reminded me, like I don't know, maybe I was a little bit triggered by some of this, and it was
It's
just
totally
like,
possible, yeah. Because I even love, like, with the older brother, that whole thing where, like, he hates his dad. Like, yeah, I get it, whatever. You get in the car, you're trying to butter me up. Is it working? A little bit. And, like, there's, like, a little bit of a tension break there. We're like, cool.
yeah.
And then later, he's like, fuck you, dad. I'm leaving forever, blah, blah, blah. And then, like, the last
you were
thing
a
before they
loser
go...
in college.
Yeah. And then the last thing before they go out to find FedEx is... what he says something to him. He's like, hey, something whatever, whatever. And by the way, I'm sorry. You were right. To his son. What?
Yeah.
What? A dad said that to his son, like, you know what? Yeah, like, what I did was wrong, and I'm sorry. And at the end of the day, in that, you were right. And I have no follow-up. I am sorry, and you were right. And he's like, thank you. Boom. Whoa. Iconic. Amazing. Show-stopping. A dad apologizing to their kid? That's crazy. Who'd have thought?
That's great,
It's
and that's so
insane.
wonderful. And I feel like, because you're so right, and usually I pick up on that stuff, but I think like between like the chaos of like 8 children screaming and running
It's a
around,
lot,
and like
yeah.
I mean there was a lot of slapstick in these moments, which is really fun, but it was just like this movie is like 10 minutes of chaos, 30 seconds of like a real moment, another like 15 minutes of chaos, and then like so like these real moments are sandwiched in between, to where like for me it was hard to like be like, oh okay, this is happening, okay, like so much chaos.
It's a chaotic movie, which I think is like the whole point, where it is this like, whoa, everything's happening all at once with this wacky family. Like that's the, what is the, it's, this is, there were posters when I watched it
that's
on.
the vibe for sure, and that's what it's supposed to be.
That's Disney's whole deal. Like it was
Yeah.
a whole like wall of Disney movies on Disney Plus, and they were all essentially the same poster, white background, something else. It was like, The No Good Very Bad Day,
Parent
Super by the
Trap.
Dozen, The Tooth Fairy, The Parent Trap, like
Freaky Friday.
Freaky Friday. Like they all have the exact same poster, except you
Yes.
interchange some of the stuff, and it's like, what is this family getting into? Oh no! Like, that's literally the premise of all of these movies. Is like, whoop, wacky family, womp womp womp.
Also, I feel like they went really hard on the children being assholes, to like a point where I was like, okay, as like a 10-year-old, I would never think to steal ground beef from my mother and then go take my sister's boyfriend's underwear and like swear that, like that would not cross my mind. Like,
Well, I love that also, and going back to Steve Martin being a king in this movie for me, is his reaction to it is like, who did this? It was you. you are a genius. I literally never would have thought to do that. You are so smart, but you are grounded because you shouldn't have done that, and it is bad. Like you are. I want your brain. You're so smart, but you are grounded. Please go away. Like you know what I mean? It's like a very sweet like, hey, I can recognize the talent in this. Like you put effort into this. That's sick. But it was bad and it did hurt somebody, so like it's a problem. But apart from that, this was 100% literally the perfect time for like Nickelodeon antics and Disney Channel antics where it's like kids rule, parents drool. Like that was the whole vibe and aesthetic of like literally all programming for young people.
Literally.
And so like similar to like Big Fat Liar or these other movies where it's like
Blank
kids
check.
kids literally like putting adults in near-death danger sometimes, and then it's kids being
Baby's
like,
Day
no!
Out. Another
Literally.
classic.
Another classic. I need to rewatch Baby's Day Out. That movie is so good. Oh my god!
It
Speaking
really
of
is.
daddy
It's so
issues, my god, the men in that movie destroy me. Whoa! I was just talking about this with Eric the other day, and I was like, oh my god! I was like, I don't know how old I was, but there were so many times where like looking back as a kid, I'm like, oh, I was gay. I'm gay. Like I was gay. I was a gay kid. Like maybe like 8 or 9 watching Baby's Day Out and being like, oh, these men. Yes.
Yeah.
Like what? My brain is just firing, whatever. But
Who's the mom in Baby's Day Out?
Yeah.
Lara Flynn Boyle. Anyways, sorry.
Okay.
Tangent.
I do want to rewatch Baby's Day Out so bad. But yeah, that's, I think to me, like the way that the kids do kind of go really hard on some of these pranks, like getting the dog to literally rip Ashton Kutcher's dick off in
was
this
so good.
is like, oh shit, like that's like really bad. Like in the reality of danger, that's terrifying and like awful. But
how did he not scream? Like,
I
is what I want to
know.
know. Like, how did he not? How was he just like, oh, okay? Like, how did he not? How did he not?
I know it was wild. There was like him on the ground. He's like, and they're like, get the dog off. But it was just, yeah. I feel like this was of the perfect time for that kind of kids rule, parents rule.
Yes.
Nickelodeon forever vibes. So in the older brother's room, I did clock the Transplants poster and the Bouncing Souls poster because I have to do that in all of these dumb movies where it's like,
of course,
gorgeous. There was a line that I just think is funny because it's a lot of just like throwaway homophobia. The friend, what is his name? Who's the hot dog wiener guy? Shake tells Tom at one of their meetings that he calls him just a pansy house husband.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, okay. Like, and it just, because to me, it for some reason, I feel like pansy is a little bit like too harsh for a Disney movie. Like a Disney movie like this. I feel like I'm like, because to me, pansy is like borderline queer. Like they were like almost saying like, oh, you queer, but like it's a pejorative. And so when he was like a pansy house husband, I was like, was he allowed to say that? That's like actually like a rough one.
I feel like they do say it in a couple of other Disney movies too, like especially
Pansy?
anything that has like Tim Allen or anything, right? Like I feel like this was definitely of the era for Disney where they were very happy using that to reinforce masculinity and what is correct and what is, not correct.
Yeah, like, oh, he's going to stay at home and cook for the kids. What is he, a faggot? And you're like, oh, okay, like, let's not, oh, calm down. Like, we really don't need that. Like, you guys. But it's so aggressively homophobic in that way where it's like, he's not playing with the big boys because he just likes wieners. And you're like, oh, it's such a boring subplot or such a boring, like, it's boring. Mm-hmm. I'm just surprised that it was used because I do think that pansy is it's casual, but it is very much like a whoop word. So I was curious and I wrote it down because I was like,
it's like calling somebody like the P word or something.
Yeah, kind of.
Like,
and you're like, okay.
It's a more G-rated version of calling someone a pussy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. There's not, what else is in this movie?
I don't know, there wasn't really a lot of substance to it. Like it was mostly like, here's mom and dad and then kid antics and we're done.
Yeah, there was Beans from Even Stevens showing up and getting wild.
There was like the family across the street. There's not really a lot to say about them. Like they were bad because mom is like controlling, and it's supposed to be funny because she doesn't eat meat and she only wanted one child.
Yeah. Like, oh, she's a bad person for that. And here's the thing, like, there are moments where I'm like, I do think that, like, she's a bad person, but I do think it's one of those things that in, like, because she doesn't really get her justice. Like, because to me, if you're going to paint this character as, like, a bad person for the sake of, like, oh, she's a mean B word or whatever, like that's what they're trying to paint her as, like, wow, aren't women just, like, bad? And, like, she's the bad one of them, which, whatever. For the sake of the dichotomy and the contrast and, like, the conflict, yes. But in the end, she doesn't even get a redemption, which kind of bothered me.
No, like, they didn't even need to be there.
We're left with that. She has not changed at all. She's still this stubborn asshole who we've introduced. And it just bumps me out because it does reinstill that, like, the misogynistic take on, like, a mean lady. She's just a mean lady. It's like, everyone else gets an art. Like, I don't know, give her a chance. But
it was right there.
Yeah, and it's hard too because there's how many characters are here that they have to spend time with, and it's an hour and a half. Like, we literally how many characters?
It is an hour and a half, and we spend a lot of 15, the time 16, with Nora, who's left, and then it's like, oh, but wait, no, I actually want 84 million kids too. So, bye, Ashton.
Yeah,
you know,
which, I mean, granted, she should have left him because he sucked, but, like,
he did suck, yeah.
Not for that reason. Be like, oh, he actually doesn't want to have. He doesn't want to have a million kids with me. So fuck
something
him.
else that we didn't really talk about was, like, I feel like a lot of the decisions are, like, really manipulative in this movie, where, like, it feels kind of like there's certain moments where this person wants something, so they are a little bit manipulative in how they present something, or even, like, the vote, like, okay, we're gonna vote to see how we move, right? We're gonna do this, let's talk about this. But it was really just like, well, I'm gonna change the votes anyway, right? Like, or Nora, and Nora's whole reason why she wanted to get away from them was, yes, so she could fuck her boyfriend. But the biggest part, and the thing that she says, is because she feels like they manipulated her all the time, and they're manipulating her now into coming back. So, like,
well, yeah, exactly. Like, I'll only come back to help if we can stay in the same room. How about you get here and we talk about the details once you get here?
Correct.
No, tell me that's happening or else I'm not coming. Like, fuck you guys. Like, right. I'm an adult now. Let me be an adult. Like, I'm your child, but I'm no longer a child. Like,
and she's trying to get attention. She's like, I got my dream job. I got this. And, like, before she can even say anything, they're like, oh, can you go grab a diaper, or can you grab a Band-Aid, not diaper, whatever. But, like, she's like, oh, cool. Well, I got a job. I got the one that I wanted, and nobody cares. And that kind of goes back to my point that, sure, like, mom and dad love each other, but they're not really there to nurture their kids, and they can't be. How can you be there and be this person for literally 12 people, you know, like, and so I don't know. And a lot of that has to do with belonging, and, like, again, like, how do you get 12 people to go along with things? Well, I mean, you do have to, you know, figure out how to manipulate things or situations, or, you know, like, manipulate even your schedule, right? How I'm going to drop this person off and go here, and then you're going to take the twins here, and you're going to do this. Like, a lot of their life revolves around that idea. How can I make this work? And how can I make, like, so I think it's something that's just kind of second nature. But yeah, I did like that for her. And, you know, that she's like, hey, like, I was being manipulated. I don't want that. But then at the end, she's like, oh, but you know what? Maybe I do. And I'm like, oh, fuck this.
Yeah. I feel it's, at the end of the day, don't have fucking 12 kids. Like, literally don't have 12 kids. That's just the whole answer, is don't have that many kids. It's, like, not worth it.
It's
right?
It's not good. Yeah.
It's not good. Nobody's going to have a good outcome from that. Like,
when you have children, like, are you doing this because of this number, or because you've always wanted kids? Or are you doing this because you want to be there to be a parent and to nurture a life, and to, like, you know, parenting is not just like, oh my God, I get to put them in cute outfits, right? Like, well, for a long time, I used to think that I wanted to be a parent, and it was because, like, oh, I would be such a better parent than my mom. like, and my parents.
Yes.
I would be so much better at this. But then would I be having children because I want to have children and nurture them? Or would it be because I'm going to be sticking it to my parents and being like, haha, see, I did a better job? Or would it be because I want to dress them up in these cute little outfits and stuff? Or like, would I want my child to be their own person? You know, how would I deal with that? Like, if at any point, like, your answer is something like that, I mean, maybe you shouldn't be having kids. Maybe you need to understand why you want to have kids before, you know, and I feel like they never questioned that. They were just like, I had 8 brothers and sisters and I wanted that. Well, I've always wanted a big family because I'm the only kid, or I was the only kid. Okay, great. So they're coming at this from their own experiences, right? Not necessarily because they wanted to be parents. And so mom, she had that nurturing relationship with her parents. So I feel like she was able to be there a little bit more really for the kids, probably because she understood what connection and stuff was and what that parental connection was. Whereas Steve Martin's character did not, right? You know, likely.
Yeah. He was just like, have them and let them do whatever they need to do. Whatever.
Yes, exactly. Like, let him grow.
Let him run. I don't know. We'll feed him pizza or something.
Right.
Like, well, how hard can they be?
Anyways.
Yeah. Don't have that many kids. Literally. Don't do it.
Paul and Zoe Baker met in Paul's breakfast diner, where they both fell in love after Zoe referred to Paul as the Willy Wonka of breakfast without all the slave labor. The two hit it off and were quickly married, bringing together several children from their previous marriages and having a few of their own, bringing the grand total to 9 children. Everything was going great. Paul's ex-wife, Kate, babysat the younger kids, while the older kids worked with the parents at the breakfast restaurant. Zoe's famous ex-husband and Paul had a very healthy relationship, and Paul's secret breakfast sauce finally found investors and became an overnight hit.
Paul decided to take some of the investment money to buy the family a huge house in a rich, very white gated community, which resulted in their non-white children and Zoe having to confront a new level of racism daily, to which Paul was completely oblivious and unresponsive to. On top of that, Paul's nephew comes to live with them and tries to start a new life with their support. Things start to unravel as Paul is frequently called away on business trips, Zoe feels cut out from the family business, the kids turn to violence, and even start giving up on their dreams, finding it difficult to exist in a space that is not welcoming to non-white folks. Everything comes to a head at one of the children's birthday parties, where Paul is finally forced to confront how his decisions are affecting those around him, and his nephew runs away. The family goes to get the nephew, moves back to their old neighborhood, drops the investors, and gets back to what's most important to them, each other. So I do want to start this one off by saying that this is a Gabrielle Union stan account.
Yes, she's
literally
lovely.
She's this. Okay, I don't want to be like mean. This movie is not great in my eyes. I don't think it's well written. I love a lot of the ideas. I like a lot of what's going for. I hate Zach Braff, so he was a huge turnoff for me. But then she, like, literally anything that she was in, she carried. Like, she was
100%.
working with a, like, not to be like a dick, but like kind of a crummy script, and she delivered constantly throughout. No questions asked. She carried this movie. Gabrielle Union, we are not worthy. She's so good in everything she does. I love Gabrielle Union. Now we can get on to the movie. So the movie is so I'll go back to what I said about a lot of cool ideas. I love that in this version, we're getting more of a conversation about divorce and about, like, splitting up and having kids from different people, and how that, like, kind of comes into play, especially when it comes and co-parenting, and especially when it comes to, like, biracial co-parenting. Like, what does that look like, and how does that look like in the context of family when it comes to race and white perception of race in this context? All those ideas, I'm like, yes, I'm so into this. I love this as, like, a concept for conflict, and also just as a story. Like, what a cool way to update it. But the way it was executed, I was like, I don't know. Like, if Gabrielle Union wasn't in this movie, complete dud, unfortunately. Like, those scenes with, like, June, and I love June Diane Raphael. I think she's amazing. But, like, her being that, like, racist neighbor, like, nobody in that scene is kind of giving anything except for Gabrielle Union. She's the only one who's like giving an earnest, reactive, intentional performance, and everything else is just like, it really did feel kind of like a crummy decom.
This, to me, it felt really heavy-handed in the ways that it was trying to talk
It
about some of these issues.
did.
And I just looked it up, and I mean, maybe you can verify, but it looks like it was written by Craig Titley, who's a white man, which tracks because this whole thing felt like it was trying to be like, see, white people, this is our experience, while still centering the white guy, the scrawny little white guy, and his journey in here in this movie, when like literally his wife is saying, I'm uncomfortable here, and he's like, no, it's fine. And her ex-husband Dom is like, hey, you need to realize, like, Gabrielle Union has to have the talk with her children, like, hey, we cannot bring fake guns anywhere because this is, you can play with this at home, but you cannot take this under no circumstances. Can you take this out? And Zach Braff would never have had that conversation. He'd be like, yeah, whatever. You know, like,
Yeah.
even though he is with Gabrielle Union, he hasn't done any of the work to understand where she's coming from and what the world is like for her and her children. And that's apparent in so many different avenues. But he's receptive eventually, and he's not like malicious. The way it's portrayed is he's not malicious in it. It's fine because he's got work to do, you know, like, but I feel like, especially to be a parent, to like, why have you guys have been together for probably like 10 years, something, right? Something like a good amount of years to where you should know and understand these complexities and maybe think before you do something, or before you give advice, or before, you know, like, consult your wife about where you're going to fucking move and say, is this going to be okay for my children? You know?
Yeah. Thank you for bringing up the writer. And I don't mean to come on here and continuously big drag writers, but like, true to form, why are white people still writing stories and like perspectives on Black experiences? Like, we don't need to keep doing that. Like, it's bad and wrong, and like, it's gonna make for a shitty product. A. B. You have no idea what that looks like or is, so don't touch it. Like, get away. It's not yours. It's not your story to tell. Stop telling it. And it came across so evidently in the scene with Zach Braff and what is the other actor's name? Dom, yeah, Timon Kyle Durrett, who plays Dom, Gabrielle Union, Zoe Baker's ex. When they're standing there and he's like, I'm taking full custody of my kids, blah, blah, blah. They're on the porch. And Dom is essentially like, you don't get it. You are not Black. You'll never know what it's like. I feel like, yes, everything he said was correct. And even when Zach Braff, or when Zach Braff says, you're right, I will never get it, blah, blah, blah. But, and there is always a but with white people in these conversations, I love your kids and they're a part of my family and blah, blah, blah. It was such a white-centered conversation. Like, yeah, they did the bare minimum to recognize that, like, well, you don't, like, the next best thing would have been, well, you don't know how hard it is to be white, right? Ugh. But this just toned that down a little bit and still centered Zach Braff as, like, the focal point in a conversation about Black experience, which is like, well, no, stop. And it was so clear that a white person wrote it. Like, it was so clear. Like, yeah, maybe I'm not Black. Maybe I will never know what it's like to be Black, but I love your kids. Like, hey, that's actually not what we're talking about. We're talking about Blackness in the face of whiteness as violence. We're not talking about how you love your kids. Like, and I know that's what the movie's about. It's about family and you're trying to prove that, like, you're a good dad, but that's not what Don was talking about. Like, why are we changing the subject? I don't know. It was so apparent and silly, and I was like, oh, God.
It felt like such a weird tonal shift, too, whenever we switched to these ideas, where it's like, okay, like, again, cool, you want to tell this story, have a Black writer. Because like, these issues are literally brought up in like every single part of this movie, where, you know, Gabrielle Union and the moms, right, or the rent-a-cop, or even at the kids' schools. It is just so, it definitely felt like it was written by a white writer, who doesn't understand these experiences, and maybe was trying to, you know, be like, oh, this is okay, so this is what this is like, and this is what us white people need to understand, right? Like,
Yeah.
but again, you're not the person to speak to that, and like, at least like not in this way, because you're trying to tell this story from, again, like you're trying to tell the Black experience as a white person when you don't understand that. The person that wrote the Scooby-Doo live action movie is not the person to write this.
Was that who this person is?
Yeah, here, I'm gonna
wait. Stop.
and he also wrote the original Cheaper by the Dozen.
Oh.
I
Wait,
mean, not the original, the Steve Martin version.
Oh, no shit. So he wrote this with James. He wrote the Scooby-Doo movie with James Gunn. He was one of the writers. He was a storyboard writer
Yes.
for that. And then...
And Cheaper by the Dozen. And he worked on...
Screen story for Cheaper.
Yeah.
Wait. So he's the writer of literally both of these. He's the sole writer of each one of these.
Uh-huh.
Because Frank Gilbreth wrote the novel, and Ernestine Gilbreth Carey wrote the novel. They're the people who wrote the book. So for this one, he's the screen story. So he is the sole story for this.
Yeah,
screenplay.
for this and for the Steve Martin one.
Okay, that surprises me because, wait.
I know, that's really weird, right?
That's really weird because to me, I'm like, that's not the same writer.
It's strange.
That's strange because I was literally going to say, like, I was going to juxtapose the storytelling from each to be like, oh, see, like, in this one, that writer did this, but it's the same guy.
I mean, that makes this a more interesting conversation, so please do that.
It really does. Okay. Well, because my whole thing was like, the way that I loved the way that he'd written, or that it was written in the first one, how they genuinely liked each other and supported each other and had their back. And in this one, it's not as evident or as clear, especially in like that scene where he's talking to Gabrielle Union and he's like, this has always been my dream. She's like, your dream? What about mine? Like, isn't it our dream? Like, I literally have invested my entire life in this with you. Like, I helped you develop this restaurant. Like, I'm here. He's like, yeah, but like, I'm doing all this stuff. And she's like, we're doing all, like, why is it suddenly like just you and I'm just forgotten? Why is that a part of the conversation? She has a
marketing degree and she's not even a part of these conversations where she like.
And so to me, it seems like...
I absolutely get that.
I don't understand why that
Talk about reinforcing gender norms in a shitty way, right?
That also seems like just like the wrong move, because in the other one, it's very clear, like, they're a team and they like each other. And it's like, you're my number one. I'm consulting you on everything. We're going to make our dreams come true together. And that's the deal. That's why we're here. And in this, suddenly Zach Braff is like, but it's my dream. And she's like, wait, stop. Bring me back. Like, stop pushing me away. I'm still here. What are you doing? I don't like the choice. I think it's a bad choice.
Especially when
bad choices
especially when you're trying to have like tell the story of a biracial family, right? Like, of course, like it, like you're just Zach Braff is not a good guy.
No.
You know? But then like at the end it's like, oh, he is a good guy though, because he actually knows Seth's address by heart because he sends him birthday cards.
Yeah. And it's like, okay, you memorized an address. Go you. Congrats, King.
Good. Okay. And then there's like this weird, like, again, we're having these like racial conversations baked into this story. You're forgetting about your Black wife and not caring about her or her experience. And you're like, you have this really unhealthy relationship with her ex-husband who you feel like you constantly have to be compared to and talk about shoe size with. Like,
okay, Jess, that was the most uncomfortable dick joke riff.
It was really bad.
Like, I don't get it. Like, I mean, I get it. I get what the point is. Like, dick size and shoes. Like, cool. Like, how big is your shoe? 9 inches. I mean, whatever. Not, yeah. Like, how big is? It's just so like, it was so boring and so. I just hated it. It's not.
I hated it. And I also I hated that
so much.
Kate was also like the ex-wife was not around, and I never really saw her be an actual mom. But like the way that the story goes is she got tired of Paul, so she left Paul. Like, it wasn't Paul's decision is how that's framed, right?
Yeah.
But I don't see any chemistry between the two of them, and I don't ever see her be a mother, or even I don't even think I saw her talk to her children, like her actual children in this ever.
Yeah.
So it was just like, okay, that's also really weird and fucked up. And like
I
there was a
know.
lot of really messy storytelling, and a lot of it was
it
because they tried to be like the woke version of this, but in the most
yeah.
performative way.
It's the most performative version of this story completely. Before we completely dip out of it, the shoe thing. Also, the line was "Big feet run in our family." That is said by Dom. Again, reinforcing and implying the big dick stereotype within
Yes.
blackness. And another key to like, oh yeah, this was written by a white guy. Like that's the joke. Like, oh, the black guy has a big dick. Cool. like that's really it. Like that's the all right. Great. Congrats
Hmm.
on the joke, I guess. Like good for you. It was so boring and so for no reason and just reeks of whiteness. And again, it's just ugh, whatever. I will say I did love, and I was really hopeful because after the really shitty early montage of like, this is how we met and blah blah blah, and I'm like, oh, ugh, whatever. This is a little bit boring. When finally we're seeing the kids, and it is Kate sitting on TikTok with her headphones in,
Yes.
they say, she's like, what are you guys playing? And they're like, oh, Drag Race. And she's like, great, I love RuPaul.
Yes.
Such a dumb joke, and it's so funny because she's so tuned out and she's like, what's TikTok? And I love RuPaul, but it's them like literally drag racing around the house, like perfect. And it instilled so much hope
And they got
in
her a
me.
Topo Chico,
And
right? Like, oh,
and
you
they're
got
like, no,
this.
yeah, and she's like drinking it shittily. I'm like, you're amazing. Who is this character? I'm so obsessed with you, and this is so funny. It really instilled so much hope. I was like, okay, this seems like it's gonna be a fun ride. Like, I love that joke,
And
and
then
I'm
it's
ready
like,
for the
oh,
movie.
she's the ex-wife, and it's like that doesn't work at all.
Yeah, I mean, I will say, I did like her. There were moments that didn't really make sense with her, but as a whole, I like the idea. Again, this movie is full of ideas that I generally like.
Hmm.
Like that idea of co-parenting, of like not being like, well, my ex is an
Love that.
asshole. It's
Love
like,
that.
no, well, my ex is here. We just aren't together anymore, and she's gonna be a part of the kids' lives, and we get along for the kids' sake, and why don't we get along for our sake too? Like, you're kind of a mess, but you're cool. Like, fuck it, who cares? Like, we're all a mess. Hang out. And same with Dom. Like, he went and did his thing, but now he's back, and he's like, hey, I want to be here too. And as much as Zach Braff is like, maybe not, Zoe is like, no, he's going to be here in the same way that Kate's here. And he's like, you know what? Yeah, that's true. He deserves to be here in the same way that she deserves to be here. Let's just do this. And you're like, gorgeous. I love the
Yes.
idea. I'm so into the concept. I'm so into the idea. I think it's like a really fun take on the modern family and the expectation, or like it's instilling that visual of like, yes, it's okay to be friends with exes. It's okay, especially for the sake of kids. Like, why is it just like fuck my ex? Blah. It's just like, you just stop. Like, let him
I just
come talk to them. Come on.
I at least wanted one scene where Kate talks to her children and is their mom,
Yeah,
because
literally.
like she was the babysitter this whole time. I never saw her as mom, and I don't
Yeah.
think she ever talked to like I mean, and this movie didn't send her kids a call, which is great, which is fine. We don't care except for the adopted kid, right?
Which I also love that
I
little
like that. That was
backstory.
great,
Like the
right?
inclusion of just like incidental trauma, like
Their best friend dies, and
bad things happen. They got
no
in an
questions
accident.
asked. They adopted the child. Like,
Yeah,
great,
like
excellent.
of course we are. We're the
Of course.
godparents. Of course we are. And you're like, what a wonderful inclusion to the story.
But then she never even she never talks to any of them. She's never has a moment where she's with them, and like Dom is like there with his fucking kids, right? You're like, you have no question about who he is and who he is to these kids, right? So like I wish that maybe we would have taken out some of the, the daddy dick jokes, and maybe had like a moment there, because I think
Yeah.
like it would have been like, I would have loved to see, Kate like helping her disabled daughter with like a TikTok for her band or something, right? Like, how cute would that have been?
Literally, you had so many cool little backstories with all these kids that you established off the bat. You're telling us who these people are, and you're like, amazing. And her specifically, like, I want to know about her life. I want to know about her as a wheelchair rider. I want to know about her punk band. I want to know about like what she's into.
I want to see them play. Why didn't they play her brother's? Like, they could have played her brother's birthday because her brother is into the punk girl, right? And I love that punk glow up. That was so fucking cute.
It was super cute.
How
literally,
cool would that have
Jess,
been?
That's literally the right answer. That's exactly what would have happened and should have happened. Like, why else are you telling us that she's a punk? Like, and I know that some stuff might have gotten cut, and I know that like maybe that was the intention, right? Like, maybe that's why we were told that she's like a young punk. Maybe that's why, like, all this stuff, and maybe who knows? Who knows what got cut? Who knows what's not a part of it? But that is 100% the correct answer. Like, for this story, of course, because then we get more of her. We get more of that like little story, and I'm like,
and we see her doing something other than just sitting in her wheelchair. Because I mean, she has like 2 lines in the whole movie, right? But like,
and to be fair, there's a lot of kids who have like 2 lines because there are way too many people. And again, don't have so many kids. Jesus. But I mean, it's a different context in this one, obviously. But even then, not everyone's going to get the screen time they deserve. But I feel like we spent a lot of time with that cousin for no reason. Like, and I get that it's a conversation about like addiction and low income. Like, I get it. I understand that that's why we're doing this. But it is just the mistake of like too many infographics shoved into one film. Like, it's too much of like, and not to say that it's like we shouldn't be talking about this, but it's like we should be, but you're already having so many different conversations about things barely. So like, why are we throwing more in? Like, just have conversations about what's already happening. And like the racism aspect is already a huge chunk of this movie. A, hire a black writer to help you write that. B, spend more time with it. Really investigate it. Really interrogate what that means for the family and for these characters in a real way. And not just some white guy's perspective on what he thinks should happen for these characters. No, get actual perspective here. Like, come on. We don't need to include more characters just for the sake of like, I don't know. It was too many. It was literally too many cooks in the kitchen. Like, that was the whole deal. And it was too much.
Yeah, it really was. There was a lot of really good ideas for this that just were just really poorly executed. It didn't go anywhere. And instead of focusing on the kids, we decide to focus like half the movie on the rivalry between the fathers.
Yeah,
right?
It's like too much
we
rivalry.
Don't need that. Like, if you're trying to talk about co-parenting and shit like that, like, why are you doing this? Like, it's, oh, look, women can get along together, but like, and so like that's fine, but like 2 men in the same room, no. Like you want to be progressive, you want to like do this, right?
Yeah.
Or you want to be progressive and be like, oh cool, it's a biracial family. Like, at least have the husband listen to his wife and his wife's experiences, where she, like, he doesn't listen to her on like, I'm uncomfortable here and I don't like this and I'm not sure this is the right move for our children, right? He doesn't even listen to her when she's like, I don't like it. It's so fucked up the way that he like takes her to this house too, because like he's like, hey, I think that we should spend some of the investment money on us, and she's like, no, I think we should spend it on the business. Like, I don't want her. She has the fucking perfect answer where she's like, we can't afford that house payment if something happens. Like, this is not a good move. And he's like, no, trust me, it's going to be great. You'll have a walk-in closet. And she's like, I had a walk-in closet and I left that because my husband wasn't around. And to me, I would rather have my family, my husband with me and be poor than have him be like, gone and have like everything that I could ever desire.
And then she says like, I think it's you. Did she say like, it sounds like it's you're the one who wants to walk in the closet. And you're like, this is so great and so poignant and perfect.
This is good.
Obsessed. Like, what a good perspective to have. And he's still like, no, we're moving. And she's like, okay.
And how fucked up. He's like, hey, okay, cool. Let's go check out this house. Takes the whole fucking family. Doesn't leave him with Kate or anything, right? He takes the whole family and he's like, this is your new home. You can all have a room. There's an elevator. There's this. And like at that point, anything that Gabrielle Union would have said to like, like, oh no, we can't afford this. Oh no, we can't do this. Like, maybe let's think about this. She would have been the villain because her children now have seen something that they didn't, that they didn't think that they would ever have access to.
Yeah.
And now that one person is telling them that that's a thing, if she said, no, we can't do this,
It's
you know what
yeah.
I mean?
It's just control disguised as chivalry, and it's so annoying and boring. Like wow, this amazing gesture. It's like, no, it's manipulative. She said she didn't want to do it, and suddenly you're putting her in an impossible position to where she will be the villain if she says no. Like, that's so unfair to her. And like, again, why I like the other one more is just because like Steve Martin would have never done that to Bonnie Hunt. He would not have. He would not have done that. He would have been like, let's talk about this first. We need, like, come down to the basement. We need to talk about this. Something big just happened. Do not include them. We need to
That's right.
do it together. Yeah. It's us. And then we say what's for our family, the two of us. We are the unit. It's not Zach Braff being a fucking asshole and putting Gabrielle Union in a shitty position. So many opinions.
Which was so much of this movie, too.
Yeah.
Like, and so much of this movie was like, hey, racism exists.
And you're like, yeah, it does. Cool.
Great.
What else are you saying about it? Like, it, we know it does. Like, it was not to say that I was necessarily like, wow, I really hope Cheaper by the Dozen, the remake, does not disappoint, because I was not thinking that at all. But I just, it was fine. It was big old fine leaning back. I do want to see her band now. Like, now that you say that, like, her band should have played the party, I'm like, her band should have played the fucking party. That would have
been so cool. Have her shred on the guitar.
And write an original song for it, Freaky Friday style. Like, it could have been so fucking sick. Like, the best part of that Freaky Friday movie were those songs and her band. And, like, amazing. Make that happen for this. Like, why not? It's right there. It's in the pudding.
And that's part of the Disney formula too, right? So like, just fucking do it.
They're going to sell the song. Like, do it. And here's the thing also, check it out. Because then, oh God, it would have been fun. And I don't mean to like critique the writing, but I'm going to critique the writing again. How devastating would it have been for Zach Braff when he showed up and he missed his daughter's first show?
Yeah.
He would have been like, I've never seen you. Like, it's like Gabrielle Union's like, she performed and they were amazing. And like, are you so proud of our daughter? Oh, wait, you weren't here. Why weren't you here for this amazing thing? A, your son's birthday. B, your daughter who's has this sick ass band. And you weren't here to see it because you've been being a selfish asshole up in San Francisco.
God, that would have been so good.
Right? It could have been like a wonderful little shift. Like, whatever.
Speaking of the punk stuff. Speaking of that glow up that I loved for DJ, right?
Yeah.
Like, I really, really didn't like that Dom, like, and again, like, this movie just, like, works to, like, reinforce a lot of, like, really harmful gender norms, right? Where Dom was like, what are you wearing? Eyeliner? You got to take that stuff. I'm taking my kid home right now because you all suck and you don't know how to raise my son, because he's not being a man enough for him, right?
It's just casual homophobia too, where he thinks he's being effeminate. He's wearing makeup. Who is this little queer? You're making him a woman and I hate women, so I'm taking him home. And you're like, okay. Exactly. I do like, but in that turn, like, that conflict is really tough, because then you get to see Dom in like a really negative way. Like, he's not responding to this well. He doesn't look good in this situation. Mm-hmm. But ultimately, I do like how they resolve it with the, hey, what? Like, it's so cliche, but whatever. But like, why don't I take you to Comic-Con? And DJ's like, are you serious?
That was so cute.
Like, yeah. He's like, yeah, I'm serious. He's like, oh my God, we could do cosplay, we could do whatever. And then he's like, hey, nerdy white guy, what is cosplay? And he's like, it's a lot. It is spandex. You're gonna be warm. And he's like, he's like, it's gonna be rough, but you should do it. He's like, you're right. Okay, great.
And he does it, and that was so cute, and I love that so much. And I love that, like, that his sister went with them too, like as this family. Like, I love that. I love that that's how he was like. He not only said, like, I don't know my kids well, but I want to, and I want to be there. And he fucking showed up immediately as soon as he's like, you know what? I am going to make this choice, and I'm going to do this for my family.
And that's what I love about a lot of the characters in this, because it does seem like there were so many good ideas and there were really wonderful moments here, but as just like a whole, it didn't cohese. Like it just didn't,
Mm-hmm.
it didn't find its place. It didn't find its footing. And like, because there were like genuine moments where I was like, this is like really touching and cool and good. And
Yeah.
I mean, again, I'm going to keep going back to it, but anytime Gabrielle Union was on screen,
She carried it.
she's perfect. Like perfect scene. Everything about it's perfect. So there's a lot of elements in this that are great, but as a whole, rough stuff. And also just hire black writers, like hire non-white writers to tell non-white stories. Like that should be obvious and simple, and just like literally
Right.
share a story by credit. Like who cares?
Yes.
This movie is goof.
Yeah.
Goofy.
This movie did not.
It did not. It didn't hit.
Period.
It wasn't it. Yeah, just end of sentence.
We're back.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
Eric.
Hi.
Cheaper by the dozen, 2002? Who is this for?
Wait, was it 2002 or 2003?
It was 2003, you're right.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I have said so many untrue things on this podcast.
We do it. I do, Jess. You know that I like make shit up on the top of my head, and sometimes
absolutely.
have to
Me too.
literally revise as soon as I say it. Like, well, wait, I do think I just made that up. That's not real.
Or like afterwards, then I'm just like, ah, fuck.
Like, yeah, like, oh, I actually don't think that's true at all. Who was it for? Honestly, I think it was for Hilary Duff's career. Now, with that being said, did she carry it and did it help? No. But this was at the height of Lizzie McGuire. This was like when she was really hitting it. And I think they were trying to make her at the time, they were trying to make her the girl. She was the Disney girl, but they were trying to make her like crossover movie star, winner, chicken dinner. And
but
I think
she was
that
in was this like dipping the toes in the water for
that's what I mean is like
okay.
She was like, besides Piper, she was like the main kid who always had like separate scenes with dad, separate scenes with mom. She had her own room where she was like quiet and away from everything. I feel like those moments were specifically to like, that's Hilary Duff. Let's remember her. She's it. Remember Hilary Duff. And it did not work, unfortunately. Who did you think it was for?
I mean, my answer was going to be more boring and just like white suburbia.
That's also true, yeah.
Because then it's like, I mean, again, growing up in a white suburb for like half of my life, a lot of that was like all of these lines were exactly what I would hear all the time, or like, you know, the level of stress. Yeah, so that's why I was like, this is who this is for. So they feel seen, and so they can take movies from this, and they could be like, it was for the parents, so they could be like, ah, yes, see, raising children is so hard. Oh my goodness, like that's who it was for.
My second answer was going to be Simple Plan's amazing track, I'm Just a Kid.
Yes. Yes, fuck yes.
Because that song still rips. And it was perfect for this movie because it was like kids being kids and being angry. And it's like, I'm just a kid and life. And you're like, yeah, life is a nightmare. You're right. I'm 6 and fuck the world. And you're like,
Oh, I love that.
I hate my rich white family. Fuck. I hate being privileged. Yeah. Anyways.
Oh my God. Wow. Did you like it?
You know what? I actually did. It's like, it is a simple movie. I do think that it's effective. And the really big takeaway for me why I like it is because Steve Martin and Bonnie Hunt like each other. And it's so rare, especially in these movies, where it's like, he's going to blame her for being a woman. She's going to blame him for being a bad dad. That's like what's just going to happen. And to see like the resilience there, we're like, yeah, it's hard. Yeah, they get into a couple little fights. But overall, they're still each other's biggest like support. Like, you're still my best friend. I still have you no matter what. Like, we're still doing it. And it was like that. I felt like that was so consistent. That's why I like the movie. Did you like it?
You did win me over with that because, like, you're right. There's not a moment where they blame each other like you were saying, for like being a woman or for being like, I mean, are there moments where they get into fights? Yes, but
And she's really only blaming him for being like, why didn't you tell me that this was happening?
right.
And his response is really just like, if I told you, you would have come back and you would have crushed your dream. So it's kind of like an impossible situation where like he wants the best for her and she's like, but that's unfair because I need to come home. And he's like, no, you need to follow your dream. And that's where it's like, obviously there's going to be a in that moment, but it seems like both of them still just want the best for themselves and their family. You know? It felt good.
I still don't like it.
Ooh,
I still
okay.
was just kind of like, I don't ever need to see this movie again. I found it pretty boring,
Yeah.
and there was a lot of chaos, and then like a little scene and a lot of chaos, and like because like these things that they set up didn't pan out. Like I don't know. It to me this just felt like a nothing movie,
Yeah.
and I don't really care about it.
It is
So
sort of a nothing movie. 100% absolutely agree. It doesn't like matter in the grand scheme of anything. It's just like a movie and it exists.
how about the 2022 Cheaper by the Dozen? Was it new, interesting, or the same? Progressive, regressive? How are we feeling?
I think it is new and interesting and progressive for literally all the ways we discussed. There were so many great ideas thrown around for the depictions of like non cis white genetic families. Like it was a conversation about like adoption, the conversation about biracial parenting, about co-parenting, about there was just so much there. So I thought it was new for that reason. I also thought it was progressive for that reason and interesting for that reason. But again, like we said, none of it really cohesed in any way that felt good or like felt like it hit the mark. Like none of those ideas really happened. Like they were just ideas on paper, and then that's kind of like that's where they landed. They didn't really go anywhere from just like the hey, look at this idea, and you're like, that's a cool idea. Oh, nothing? Okay, great. Cool. Like we're just not like that's just where it's gonna sit. So yeah. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it was definitely new and interesting. I liked the family was very non-traditional in the sense that these two people got together from had kids from two different marriages, had kids themselves, had an adopted kid, took in like another child that, needed like help because their parent was, there was like addiction and all of that. I like that. I like that, the other parents were involved. I could have done with a lot less conflict between the men's. But just because I feel like there was already so much to go on. And also I think that's always just such a boring take on all of that. And I did think it tried to be progressive in some of these ways, but I think a lot of the progressiveness, like you said, it didn't really pan out. Like it was out in the ether and then just like nothing came of it, or it felt really performative,
Yeah.
It felt
Yeah.
like it was written a story about like this non-traditional family and like blackness in this family and that experience written by a white person for white people. So like
Yeah.
I didn't love that.
Yeah.
I didn't love that. So I think
It's so transparent and rough.
and that's why I think like there was a lot of really good ideas, but they were all either surface level or performative. Who do you think this was for?
Gabrielle Union, 100%. Go off. This was your movie. This literally, like, the movie does not exist without you. Who do you think it was for?
Oh, it was 100% for her. And even in I did click on one or two of the 84 fucking articles that showed up for me about this damn movie. And every time she was interviewed about it, she like was stoked on it and saying that like she did this because that like growing up there were no stories about like black people in this way like on screen, so she wanted to like have kind of that diversity, and she was really excited to be a part of it for that reason, for representation and everything. So like it was for her and she did want it for her, so good for you. You made it. It looked I mean, you carried the movie. Literally any I know I'm speaking directly to her. No,
I mean, same. Like,
I mean, yeah.
like literally, you're so sick, and if you've ever listened to this, you are amazing in every possible way. Like,
Anytime she was on screen, she was just like, she commanded the screen, she commanded the scene. She like really took this like bad script and just like, you know, she felt like the only believable character. She felt like, I don't know, she was great. So we love her, but what did you think about the movie? Did you like it?
I didn't like it. It's not a good movie as a whole idea. It is not. I don't think it's a good movie. It could be. It could have been. I feel like, again, a lot of ideas presented were cool and interesting, but it just didn't really get there for me. So personally, I didn't really like it. How about you?
Same. And I think that people just need to take down our number and call us when they need some punch-ups for their script. Can you imagine if you and I were able to go through some of these scripts beforehand and be like, boom, here's this. Let's punch this up. Let's do this.
What if this literally got us a fucking job? Would that be crazy?
God. Should we do like a consulting thing? Should we just like...
I would.
Should we have NOTstalgia Consulting?
Full transparency to all the listeners there. Consulting? We write. Hire us. Like, I'm almost done with an actual new screenplay right now. So like, hey, all y'all, hire us. Let us do this.
Eric has won awards for his. He's an award-winning scriptwriter.
I'm a goddamn screenwriter. God damn it.
Also, they are so good. Like, really so good.
I'll make your story gay.
I'm not just saying that because I love you.
I'll make your story gay is really what I'll do for your stuff. Hire me. It's really fun, and I'm very fun, and I have good ideas. So, if you're out there, hire me.
Hit us up. All right. Well, I also didn't like it. FYI.
Okay.
I didn't like it. I was like, oh wait, I probably should say I didn't like it.
Look at us. We made it.
Done.
Looks like we made it. Look how far we gonna be, man.
Well, anyways, thank you so much for listening. We really appreciate you.
And please don't forget to rate and review us wherever you get your podcasts, and follow us on social media, NOTstalgia.pod. Hit us up. I'm going to start going wild on Twitter. So like, follow the Twitter. Let's get reckless. I already had some. Oh my God. Did you see somebody responded to one of my tweets?
No.
It was the homophobic dog. And it's like, are you gay? With like a suggestion. And I said it was Eric whenever a character is introduced. And somebody responded that like, is that a problem? And I'm obsessed. I'm obsessed. And I was just like, no, it's not a problem. We love it. And they didn't respond, but I'm like, yes. Oh, it was so good.
This person clearly does not know us.
No, we're just some random page. It's like, oh, are you homophobic? I'm like, oh, shut up. Go away.
No, listen to our podcast.
Yeah, literally go listen to our podcast. You'll figure it out. But follow us on social media.
Our artwork and music is by Eric Lefebvre. See, I did it again. Lefebvre. Oh my goodness. I'm
obsessed. I like that.
Artwork and music by Eric Lefebvre. Editing by Danny Barkley. And thank you again for listening. And thank you, Eric.
Thank you, Jess.
And remember, stay cute.
And stay critical. Goodbye.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Goodbye. This podcast has been brought to you by the NOTstalgia Network.
Visit thenotStalgiaNetwork.com for more.
Avatar: The Last Airbender is more than just a show.
It's a conversation of growth,
of trauma,
of culture,
of intention,
and of change.
The Momos and the Appas is a weekly conversational podcast from the NOTstalgia Network dedicated to discussing the Avatar universe as folklore, episode by episode.
I'm Eric Lefebvre.
I'm Dr. Amber Jones.
And I'm Jessica Tercero. Join us weekly as we dig into all things Avatar and Korra, including Uncle Iroh's hot bod versus his war criminal history,
Avatar Aang's well-meaning cultural revisionism versus Zuko's performance of toxic masculinity,
how ultimately Katara is the savior and the hero of the story.
Find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, the NOTstalgiaNetwork.com, or wherever you get your podcasts.